Welcome to the final lesson in the Overwhelm Solution Challenge. I'm so glad you're here. If you've been following along in this challenge, I hope you found it helpful. I hope you've been practicing the daily, weekly activities. If you're new here and this is the first video you clicked on, welcome. We've been doing a 5-week challenge. I offered this Overwhelm Solution Challenge in 2025 as a week-long 5-day challenge, and we've been doing it here on YouTube over the past 5 weeks. You're welcome to go back and catch up on any of the other videos where we talked about how to reduce your overwhelm, how to create more free time, how to get more done in less time, how to set boundaries. And today we're going to talk about how to succeed in public health right now. No matter what's happening in the field, no matter what's happening in your job, how you can be successful and how you can feel accomplished, how you can get more done, how you can make an impact in public health. If you have been here throughout the whole challenge, I want you to know I'm so proud of you. And let me know in the comments below what changes you've made, what has been the most helpful for you. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe. I'd love to have you in the community so I can keep sharing helpful videos, teachings, and lessons, resources, and tips for you to create more work-life balance and less stress in public health. And without further ado, let's get into the final video of the Overwhelm Solution Challenge, How to Succeed in Public Health right now. I'm so proud of you for being here. We're going to talk about how to thrive, not just survive, but thrive with what's happening in public health and what will probably continue to happen within politics. This week, you've been learning a lot of knowledge and skills and tools around reducing your overwhelm, and you've been starting to implement some of them as much as we can do over a short week period, right? As you implement them more and more, as they become habits, that turns into change. We know in public health, if we don't implement, nothing changes. And so you've started to do that slowly this week to the point where the changes you make are sustainable and are lifelong. I want you to shut down any distraction, shut down the news, social media, your teams, whatever it may be, so you can be fully present here today. You made the right choice by blocking off this time and coming here and tuning out the noise of the world and focusing on yourself. And I want you to be able to take full advantage of that. So if you weren't here yesterday, or if you were and you want a little recap, we talked about building boundaries. And you really learned how emotions like shame and guilt and worry really stop us from setting or following through on boundaries, and how society, how systems of oppression have really taught us to feel these emotions when we prioritize ourselves. That the patriarchy and white supremacy and hustle culture and ableism want us to feel guilt and shame, so we don't set boundaries, so we don't follow through, because then we burn out. Then we don't have the energy to dismantle systems of oppression, to create change in the world, or to just enjoy your life. That's why one of the biggest barriers to setting boundaries isn't necessarily your workload or your boss, it's our people-pleasing tendencies. And we've all been taught to people please. It's not just me, it's not just the folks in this room, it's everyone. But when you learn how to undo that, setting boundaries gets so much easier and simpler. So yesterday's daily challenge was the first one where I offered you a couple thoughts that you could play around with. Try them on clothes in a closet. Does this fit? How does this feel? Is this itchy? Does this feel good? And so the thoughts around boundaries I offered you to practice were either boundaries are and for about me and no one else. That's really a thought to help remind your brain what boundaries' purpose are. The other one was another person's reaction to my boundary is not my problem to solve. Again, that's another little bit of a reminder to separate yourself from someone else and those people-pleasing tendencies. So drop in the chat and tell me what came up for you when you practiced these. What did you notice? Was it difficult? Was it challenging? Did you like one more than the other? Did it help you? Did it not? Go ahead and drop in the chat what you noticed. Someone says the first one helped me a bit. Okay. Tell me more. How did it help? What did you notice? Again, we're not going to complete belief or complete I no longer struggle at all. We're just starting to see some micro changes. Ownership is good, but hard. Yeah. Absolutely. The hardest part of all this work is that ownership piece, is that taking responsibility and accountability. That's why most people don't do it, because that is a hard step. But you can do hard things. Listen, all of you here are wicked smart. You're very talented. You can do hard things. You've done a million hard things in your life. I still practice not explaining my boundary. So now I just say, I'm not able to help with X, Y, and Z. Yes, that is great, right? I think when we people please, we have a tendency to justify or explain our boundary. And when you start reducing your people pleasing, it gets so much easier to just set a boundary without justifying it or explaining it. And sometimes when you start that practice, it's really uncomfortable at first. I'm only motivated to create boundaries or engage in self-care if I tell myself it will help me help others. Okay. So I'm really glad you bring this up. I see this a lot of times, especially in public health, where we tell people you can't pour from an empty cup. Turning my heater off. That's a good place to start. But what you will probably notice and what you've probably run into as a challenge is then when you want to set a boundary or self-care just for you, it's really hard. And truthfully, we do not have to justify our self-care or our boundaries. And when we set it just when it benefits someone else, then we're setting up the standard that it has to be justifiable. So if you are someone who you notice you can do it when it benefits someone else, but not for yourself, the question then becomes, how do I transition where I feel more comfortable doing it just for myself? Someone wrote, a better appreciation for others I've noticed that are good at setting their boundaries. Yeah, because it's a skill they've developed. Boundaries are difficult for me because of my husband and family. Boundaries outside of a home are a bit easier. Okay, so boundaries are the same no matter if it's at work, if it's with friends, if it's with family. It's the same exact concepts. Now, you bring up a key point. Like for some of us, boundaries do feel easier in certain areas of our life. The question to ask is why? What I have found for the most part, the areas in which we struggle with boundaries, it is either because of other people's reactions or because of our worry about other people. And again, that often roots down to people pleasing. Not always. Someone said, due to health reasons, I've learned that boundaries are a must. Yes, I'm glad you brought this up. So I see this a lot with clients who, let's say they just had their first kid. Boundaries all of a sudden become a lot easier because they, have a child they're caring for. They have to pick them up from daycare if they've suddenly gone to daycare or they're starting school, right? So when there is something happening that kind of forces us to set a boundary, like kids or like severe health issues, that can make boundary setting easier. However, it doesn't mean that working on boundaries isn't helpful. Because once your health gets better, or once your kids go to college, if you haven't worked through these root challenges with boundaries, you're going to struggle again. Yeah. Okay, so real quick, here's what we've covered this week for so far. If you've missed any of these, the replays are going to be available until next Friday. So you have time to go back and dive in. But on Monday, we talked about what causes overwhelm and how to reduce it. And that overwhelm is not a result of your to-do list, your boss, or your job. It is a result of what you are thinking. Day 2, we talked about how to get more done by really understanding your brain's motivational center. You learned how your brain wants to avoid pain, seek pleasure, and conserve energy. And what happens in our day-to-day work, our brain is constantly trying to do that, which means procrastinating, doom scrolling, going to the fridge to get food instead of working on maybe the complex or harder tasks. And your brain covers this up by just saying, I don't know how, I don't have time for this, I don't know where to start, this is too hard. We expanded on that on day 3 and talked about creating and using more free time and how that doesn't require more discipline or more willpower. But what's preventing you from creating and using your free time is actually this concept of chasing enough. Like you're chasing to get enough done, and how you're always on that hamster wheel. And you, as in all of us, like we've all been socialized to do that. And then as we've already covered, boundaries yesterday. Here's what you've learned this week. That while your thoughts might feel true, that doesn't mean they are true. And here's what I mean by that. It doesn't mean they're objective, universal, no one can argue it facts. All the thoughts you think are totally valid. There's nothing invalid about the thoughts and feelings you have. However, when you believe your thoughts are facts and that they can't change, that gets you in a little bit of a pickle because your thoughts create your feelings. So then you're set up to not be able to change your feelings. The good news is your thoughts are not objective facts. They're optional. They are choices you get to make about what you believe. And you can change those thoughts that you're having to have a different experience. How you feel is a result of what you're thinking, all the thoughts you're thinking all day long. And your thoughts and your feelings really drive your actions. What you choose to say, what you choose to do, the decisions you make, what you choose not to say, what you choose not to do. And this is what we're going to really expand on today. Your greatest power in the face of any challenge is choosing how you think and feel, which determines how you show up to overcome that challenge. And we're going to talk about that more today. But before we do, I want to do a little check-in. As I've shared with some of you this week, one of the things built into my coaching program, and it's done not just laissez-faire, just for fun, it's actually based in scientific backing around how to achieve goals, how to change habits. And that is to intentionally reflect and celebrate on what has been working, on the progress you've made. Our brain has a natural negativity bias. We did not cover this week. If you go through my program, we talk about this a lot more. But our brain always wants to look at the negative, or always wants to look at maybe what we haven't accomplished, what we haven't done. We briefly touched on that in the not enough cycle. And what we need to do in order to make changes and to make habit changes and achieve our goals, especially in a way where it becomes second nature, we have to intentionally shift our brain to focus on what's working, what did change, and focus there. And the magic thing is, the more you do that, the more success you're going to get. Because truth be told, your brain is much more motivated by that, much more motivated to make changes and overcome challenges and do the uncomfortable thing by the positive reward. But because your brain doesn't naturally look at the positives, we have to direct it that way. So we're going to practice that skill right now. I want you to think about what changes you have seen this week. There is no change that is too small. Did you notice you built more awareness around your thoughts? Did you realize you have a lot of negative thoughts? Did you practice new thoughts and see a little bit of relief? Did you practice new thoughts and realize your brain retaliated a little bit? All of those things are positive changes. Those are all part of the process of making these changes. Did you leave the office on time? Or did you notice, hey, I'm not leaving on time and I'm realizing why now? Did you schedule a workout class? Did you give yourself a break from the news? What was it this week that what you've learned here has helped you do? Drop in the chat. There's nothing too small. This is not right or wrong. Again, this is part of the process of building the change you want. What have you noticed? There we go. I realized I'm allowed to think. I'm allowed to feel or think anything. I just get to decide yes. When I started learning this work, that blew my mind. That blew my mind. And it's so powerful. We're going to talk more about that today. I asked myself several times, is this thought helpful? And that helped me redirect my thoughts. Yes. That is a tool you all can take with you after this challenge and keep practicing that. I haven't felt as stressed, and it's easier to walk away at the end of the day and be present at home. I love that. Now, for you, you might want to think about what aspect of what I learned helped me do that and pinpoint that so you can expand on it. Someone said Monday was rough, but the rest of the week I did better leaving work on time and not doom scrolling. I made it to the gym, my happy place, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and felt less trapped by work and obsessive news cycles. Yes, that's amazing. All of these things you're all writing in, these are all celebration worthy. These are all wins. Someone said, I feel better knowing I'm not the only one who struggles with these things. I thought something was wrong with me and there was no hope. This is very, very common, what you're bringing up. I actually see this a lot in my coaching program. When you come through my coaching program, most weeks I give you a worksheet to work on. And I've had many clients say, oh my gosh, I thought it was just me who struggled with this. But since you have a worksheet, like obviously other people do, because you sign this to everyone in the program. So very, very common. Nothing is wrong with you. What's wrong is this broken system we have to work under. There's nothing wrong with you. We can make changes to make our experience under this broken system so much better. Someone else said, agreed, I thought it was just me. Yes, very, very common. It's not. And nothing's wrong with any of you. Awareness that I've let the current situation overwhelm me a bit, and that I need to change my thoughts to change my feelings in order to find the hope and courage to keep going with my job search. Yes. And listen, you are not alone. I do that. I've been doing this for years. I have my own coach. I still have to remind myself of this. Like I said at the beginning, like I feel more heavy today about what's been going on than I have the rest of the week. And I know what that means is like, one, I need to allow the emotions, but two, I also need to engage back into what I'm thinking and feeling because I have so much agency there. So let's talk more about that. These are all amazing wins. You all are already making progress to changing. Like all of this. If all of you were in my program and we were meeting and this was your reflection after like week 1 or week 2, we'd be totally celebrating, be like, you're right on track. You're making all the progress you need to make. Okay, so here's how to succeed in public health right now, and honestly at any time. Number 1, make mental health your top priority. Now, this isn't just specific to right now. This is something that I worked with my clients on during COVID. This is something I had to do way back in 2017, way before COVID when I was going through burnout. Because of the nature of our field and how it's been built in the high burnout promotion, mental health isn't promoted as a top priority. However, it is the key to success. Because our mental health, what we're thinking and feeling, directly impacts how we handle challenges, make decisions, and navigate crises. The second piece, and this is helpful at any time, but particularly during times of crisis and chaos, create internal certainty in the face of external uncertainty. So you can focus on what you can control. Your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, your decisions. So you can decide how you want to show up to the challenges you're facing. So you can decide what you want to believe about yourself and your ability in the face of those challenges. So here's why mental health needs to be your top priority. Mental health, as you all have learned this week, determines how you face challenges, how you feel. What is mental health? We all have brains. I know we've been socialized that mental health is a diagnosis or going to therapy. No, mental health is your brain and the health of your brain. And one of the key components of that is what are you believing and what are you thinking? And when we build kind of a hypervigilance, which happens very frequently during times of crises around external worries, like right now, hypervigilance around funding, around the news, it makes it so much harder to have strong mental health and overcome the challenges we're facing. And we end up getting stuck in worry and dread and anxiety and overwhelm. And then that makes it so much harder to overcome challenges. Notice I said stuck. It is totally normal to feel anxious, to feel worried, to feel sad, to feel grief, to feel overwhelmed. There's nothing wrong with those emotions. Those are human emotions. The thing is, we don't want to get stuck in them where we can't get out, where we're drowning by them. Because when we get stuck in them, it shuts us down from showing up the way we want to. And your brain right now, and many of you have noticed this, is going to want to hyper-focus on the news, worrying about how the communities we serve are impacted, panicking about job security, freaking out about finances. Now, I'm not saying those things, there's anything wrong with thinking about those things. There might be times where you do want to think strategically about your finances, or you are concerned about the communities that are impacted. But there is a difference between planning and being thoughtful and being strategic and getting stuck, getting hypervigilant, getting overwhelmed by it, and spinning into hopelessness. So here's how this plays out. Let's say you read the news headline, like CDC is pulling back 11 billion funding in COVID funding. You can see I updated this last week. I could have used a million other headlines from this week in this example. And your brain is thinking public health is crumbling. I've seen this a lot on LinkedIn. And then you feel what? For one person, it might be hopeless. I'm using in this example, overwhelm. It's not because you don't feel overwhelmed because of the news headline. Now, we're not denying that that sucks and that's shitty what's been going on. But this is really important. The way you're feeling, the emotion you feel is not because of that news headline. It's not because of what's happening outside of you. It's because of the thought you are thinking when you think public health is crumbling. While that thought might feel true, and yes, that thought is totally valid, is thinking it helping you? For most people, the answer is probably not. Why? Where does that thought and feeling lead to? Panic, doom scrolling, then we feel more overwhelmed, and then we don't work, and then we get distracted, and then we feel more overwhelmed, and then repeat. And I've said this a bunch this week, but I want to emphasize this. The point of these examples are not to say, hey, you have to stop thinking this, or you have to think this other way. It is just to show you where you have agency. If you choose intentionally to keep thinking public health is crumbling, that is 100% your choice. And you have free will to do that. I just want you to see you have agency and you have choice and to be able to use it. So here's how overwhelm keeps us stuck. And this is no matter when you're feeling overwhelmed, whether it's now or, when things are quote unquote normal. But your brain's reactions to challenges, on the top left, we have face challenge, determines whether or not you feel overwhelmed. So you have a reaction to a challenge and you start having a thought that creates overwhelm. And then that can lead to hyperfocusing, worrying, panicking, turning into that hypervigilance. And we focus too much on the worries, on the things outside of our control, the things creating, or the thoughts we have creating overwhelm. That can get us stuck in hopelessness or dread or overwhelm itself. And then we don't overcome the challenge. And then we feel more overwhelmed because we haven't overcome the challenge. This is a cycle we can get stuck into. And this happens when we're not taking care of our mental health. And here's the hard truth. We're not taught how to take care of our mental health. Listen, I'm all for baths. I go to the spa regularly. I love it. All that self-care stuff is not the same as taking care of your mental health. It's not the same as determining what you want to think and feel and taking agency over how you think and feel. So let me show you what it looks like when you put all these skills and tools into practice and you utilize them regularly. So let's say the context is the same, right? You read a news headline, CDC is pulling back this funding, but you think no matter what happens, I can figure this out. And you really believe that thought because you've developed the skill to, because you've reminded yourself of past examples where you have done that. And you've really built this belief. No matter what happens, I can figure this out. That does not create overwhelm. It creates determination, or maybe for you, motivation or commitment. And what does that lead to? Thinking strategically, planning, problem solving, looking for solutions, not giving up, overcoming challenges. And then this repeats. So this is really what mental health is about, and strengthening our mental health. And listen, I have to do this too. I coach myself all the time. I have a coach. There's not like an exemption that once you learn it, then all of a sudden you never have to practice it. This is a lifelong skill that you're building, you're learning, that you have to practice the rest of your life. It gets easier the more and more you do it, and the more second nature it becomes. But instead of that cycle of overwhelm, when you prioritize your mental health, when you manage your mind, when you decide what you want to think and feel, you create the skill of overcoming any challenge in your way. You face a challenge, you feel determined or motivated or confident, whatever the emotion is for you, and then that helps you overcome the challenge. And then because you've overcame that challenge, you feel more determined and more motivated and more confident. The same thing goes over and over again. Why is this so important? Not just now, but at all times. What is life when we really distill it down? What is living as a human on this planet? All it is a series of challenges we're constantly overcoming. Our whole life. Think about being born, learning how to walk. That is a challenge that humans overcome, right? All the way until the day we die, all we're doing with our life is overcoming challenges. And we want to do it in this cycle rather than the overwhelm cycle. There will always be challenges in public health. Yes, right now we're facing challenges we maybe have never faced and maybe a higher volume than we've ever faced, but there will always be challenges. And right now, all of you have been beginning to learn this skill, the skill of overcoming any challenge. This skill serves you in any and every area of your life. It's not about just surviving, it's about thriving no matter what challenge you're facing. The other piece, especially in times of crisis, is shifting the focus of your control. Life has always been uncertain. The future of public health was uncertain before Trump took office, before any of these changes has happened. External changes don't create uncertainty. They remind us that life is always uncertain. We often live under this illusion that certain policies or laws or funding gives us control over the future, gives us certainty over the future. It has never been that way. Those external things never give us certainty. Why? Because we don't control them. We can't predict them. We don't get control or certainty from external things. We get it from ourselves. In order to get more certainty right now and at any time, you need to create it within yourself. How? Certainty comes from what you choose to think and feel and do. True freedom is really accessed in your mind. And I find reflecting on what Viktor Frankl has shared is one of the best tools that I use in times of extreme crises like COVID and now. Viktor Frankl, if you're not familiar, wrote Man's Search for Meaning. He was a Holocaust survivor. He was a psychologist. He watched his family be killed in the Holocaust. And this is a quote from his book. Everything can be taken from a person but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstance. I always tear up when I read that quote, always, because it's so true. There is one freedom no one can take from you, and that is the freedom to choose what you want to believe and think in the face of any challenge. No one can take that from you unless you let them. And what this anti-science administration wants is for all of you to be thinking and believing the world is ending, public health is ending, everything's falling apart, there's no help, there's nothing I can do. They want you to be in a panic and stuck frozen in an overwhelm. Because when you do, you burn out, you exhaust yourself. You don't show up to do the amazing work and have the impact you can have. You don't fight back, you don't push back, you don't advocate. Because you're so exhausted, you can't. Not only that, you don't get to live that happy, fulfilled life, because I know none of you for the next 3.5, 4 years want to be stuck in overwhelm that whole time and miss out on time with your kids or achieving your personal goals. And you don't have to. When you know how to access leverage and master the freedom of your mind, you decide what you want to believe, think, and feel in the face of any challenge. This isn't to say you have to always feel happy and always think things are sunshine and rainbows. It's saying, what do I want to believe that's going to help me overcome this challenge? This is where all your power and agency lies. And you've begun to learn this skill this week. So when you master these skills and when you use them on a regular basis to manage your mind, to manage your emotions, to create helpful thoughts, to generate helpful emotions, to take intentional action, no matter what's happening around you, in about 3 months or so, the program I run finds that this is what can happen for you. So I want to think about you right now. It's April 4th. Think about by the end of June, really implementing and mastering these skills and using them on a daily basis. You can end up cutting working nights and weekends by 50%. Feeling 40% more rested on your time off. Increasing the quality time with your family by 50%. Sleeping better with a 30% improvement in your health. Experiencing a 30% decrease in anxiety about work. Yes, even now with everything going on. All of this is possible for you. It's not going to happen overnight, and it's not a magic pill, but it does come from taking back control and agency over what you think and feel, taking that true freedom of your mind. So here's an example from someone who went through my program last year, just to illustrate the impact of this. Marie Claire shared, "This was one of the best decisions I've made in my career. Marissa understands the challenges we face and cuts through the noise to support you 100% with the root causes." That's what we're talking about here. We're getting to the root. It's not surface level. It's not a Band-Aid. It's getting to the root. She says, "It's game-changing work. I have better work-life balance, have met multiple professional and personal goals, and have built self-trust. I'd recommend her to anyone." That's why this work is so important, is building the self-trust with you, your ability to overcome any challenge, to still meet your goals no matter what's going on around you, and to take back control over your life. So I want to go over some of the other approaches you all might have tried, and they worked for a little bit or not at all, but weren't sustainable. I know it can be really frustrating, like, well, why doesn't this approach work? And I think it's really important to see the difference between maybe the advice you've gotten and what we've been talking about this week, and why learning the skills until this week are much more effective. So here are some other approaches you might have tried or have been told to try. Waiting for workplace changes. I think this week is a perfect example of why this approach isn't as effective, is because this week is a perfect example of how we don't have control over what happens at our workplace. Now, I know for some of us, it feels like, oh, this week is an exception. We never have control of what happens at our workplace, ever. Do we want our workplaces to change? Do we want more funding? Do we want more supportive bosses? Do we want, more staff support? Yes, we want all those things. We can't force those things to change. We aren't in control of it. And when we rely on our workplace to change or our job to change, for us to feel better, for us to achieve our goals, for us to have work-life balance, we are left feeling hopeless, helpless, and stuck. Versus learning how to leverage your power of managing your mind, deciding what to think and feel, deciding what actions are most helpful for you, and having the confidence and determination to execute them. The other thing is going at it alone, DIY. I've been giving you lots of resources this week for coming live as bonuses, right? Some book recommendations, some podcast episodes. I love those things. Those are great for inspiration to get started. Those are great to help maintain momentum. Those are great as refreshers. However, they do not address the one key thing that you need to make change that we've talked about all week: implementation, right? We know this in public health. We have to implement to see the impact, to see the effects. So going at it alone makes it very, very challenging, doing the DIY, to not only implement to the point where you see changes, but to not quit on yourself, to know what to do when there are challenges, especially in the context of your life. Those things have limitations. We really need accountability. We really need guidance. We really need help overcoming barriers. And I say this as someone who I have my own therapist, I have my own coach, right? We all do. That's just human nature. It's kind of like those of you who maybe can resonate with this example, who you want to work out and you can work out really great when you have to sign up for a class, pay for a membership, you get charged if you don't show up, versus during COVID, if you're like me trying to work out at home on your own, your workouts aren't as good, you're not doing it as often, right? It's a similar kind of philosophy. The last one, and then we'll talk about therapy, advice from others. So, a lot of times in public health, we connect with our colleagues, our community, by venting and complaining about everything going on. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing, and it can feel good and it can release some steam, it is not solution focused. And the rare times it is solution focused, what happens is someone tells you what they think you should do or what they did. What they think or what they've tried might not be the right solution for you. And it takes you away from relying on your power and building your confidence and your trust in your skill of what's best for you, and keeps you stuck on relying on other people. The last one that comes up the most is therapy. About 60% of women who come through my program have done therapy before. Therapy's great. As I mentioned, I have a therapist. But it is slightly different than what we've talked about here this week, even though some of the concepts are similar. How we approach it, how we implement it can be very, very different. And so I like to take this example from Becky, who was a therapist, who had been in therapy herself before going into public health. And here is what she has to say. I never worked with a life coach before, and I was worried coming from a therapeutic background who'd been in therapy. My favorite part has been getting tools, really practical applied tools that could help me in the day-to-day. That's one of the biggest differences I've not gotten from therapy. I had specific tools where I could be an architect of my own life. And that is the core component of this work. That's why even this week, you all started practicing some tools. I taught you tools. I had you practice them in our calls live. I had you practice them in between sessions because that's where the change happens.